President Trump says he is well prepared for that meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un, but he also says attitude is more important than preparation. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says the stakes are high when Mr. Trump and Kim talk about defusing nuclear tensions.
We want to achieve a fundamentally different strategic relationship between our two countries. We believe it's important to take down the threat from the world and completely denuclearize North Korea. In exchange for that, we're prepared to do things that provide them the security assurances that they need.
Ben Tracy is in Singapore with more on the much-anticipated meeting. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. This is no doubt the Super Bowl of political summits, and everyone here is now just waiting for President Trump and Kim Jong Un to arrive. Now, over at the Capella Hotel, where the summit between the two leaders will take place, that's already on lockdown and closed to the public. There is also a visible security presence at the hotels where President Trump and Kim Jong Un will be staying. Singapore is designating the zones around those hotels and the summit location as special event areas with stricter security, including special forces. There is also airspace restrictions, including a ban on drones. Now, what is still unknown is what, if anything, this summit will actually accomplish. Will this just be a meet and greet between these two unpredictable leaders, or will they reach an actual agreement on getting rid of North Korea's nuclear weapons program and perhaps an official end to the Korean War? Now, typically the result of a summit like this is agreed to before it even begins, but that does not appear to be the case here. So that certainly raises the stakes, and President Trump will get more of that made-for-TV drama that he seems to like. Vlad.
Ben Tracy in Singapore, thank you. For more on what may come from the summit, we turn to Michael Mazar. He's a senior political scientist at the RAND Corporation. Welcome to the table.
Nice to be here.
So, to Ben's report, what are you expecting from this meeting? A meet and greet or something substantial?
So something in between, I think. The meet and greet is the most important part, just to see how they get along. It's too short of a summit, and there's not been enough preparatory work done to expect some kind of grand bargain where everything is resolved. But there should be at least a roadmap that they can agree to with maybe some initial steps in the right direction.
You talk about a roadmap. If you look back over time, maybe go back to 1994 or even 2005, we've had negotiations before with North Korea. What did we learn from that that makes us certain in what needs to be done now?
Well, a couple of things. One is that North Korea has an incentive to draw these things out and delay and find ways to kind of stretch the negotiations without actually giving up what it's trying to achieve. But the biggest question right now is how different Kim Jong Un actually is. There are tantalizing signals that he really cares more about the economic prospects of his country than his father or grandfather. What he's willing to give up to get that
total
is the
denuclearization, is that
Well,
possible?
not at once. Not at once. The question is, and the President Trump's referred to a process here. So the question is, can you get some initial concessions that give everybody a sense that North Korea is moving in the right direction and a clear plan for over a number of years? I think everybody who studies this realizes it will take a while. But at least if we have some clear milestones that we're moving toward, we'll know we're moving in the right direction, and that ought to be enough out of an initial summit.
Michael, when the president says that he doesn't need much preparation for a meeting like this, or that he's been preparing for it his entire life, does that give him the upper hand? Does that put him at a disadvantage, or perhaps neutral?
I don't know that it really makes a lot of difference. I think clearly Secretary Pompeo has been working with the North Koreans very closely. It sounds like they have some, at least initial statements agreed, and the North Koreans have given some assurance of a handful of things they're willing to agree to. But one thing we know from summits is by far the most important thing is the personal chemistry between the leaders that comes up. Whether they develop trust, whether they actually like each other. I don't know if that's possible in this case, but that's the most important thing I'm going to be looking for, is whether the two leaders seem to be getting along and establishing a basis of trust that can move forward.
We've heard some talk in the last week about a rift between Pompeo and Bolton. How does that factor in when those are two of the closest advisors to the president right now on North Korea?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know to what extent that's true. I think the way it factors in is it just gives the president a choice. Always in those cases, it comes down to the president's decision, and the president will side with one or the other side of his or potentially her administration, and then that'll be it, unless one or the other of those people then tries to work under the table to subvert negotiations or what the other side is doing. I don't get the sense that President Trump would tolerate that from anybody. So I think he's made his choice, which is to try to move forward.
you know, we have an open and democratic society here, so we'll know how successful or unsuccessful this meeting is. How do you think it will play in North Korea? Not just with the hardliners in Kim's regime, but the people. Will they ever even get a sense of what is happening in Singapore?
So it'll play in two ways. One is the way the regime there wants it to play, which is, of course, the dominant way. They will broadcast whatever message they want to. And the primary message will be the United States, we forced the United States to come to the table, and they recognized us in ways they never have before. That'll be their primary message. But there is a lot of information getting into North Korea these days, and there is a sense that the North Korean people have economic demands that they haven't had in the past. So there'll be a short-term message, but then the longer-term development of this, whether the North Korean people begin to see benefits out of it, relief of sanctions, that will be the longer-term, more important way in which a message gets through to the North Korean people.
All right, all eyes on Singapore Tuesday. Michael Mazar, thank you very much, as always. CBS News will bring you coverage of the historic meeting in Singapore, starting with our Sunday broadcast. We will also have updates throughout the summit. Jeff Glor will anchor the CBS Evening News from Singapore on Monday and Tuesday.